I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, How to Leverage Wearable Tech to Spike Exerciser Engagement. I am Brian O'Donnell, Business Manager with the TAI, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Once again, for those of you who are new to the GoToWebinar system, just a few housekeeping tips. Everyone will be in muted mode throughout the webinar, and you may ask your questions by clicking on the plus sign next to the questions in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. We suggest you type in your questions as you think of them throughout the webinar, and we'll answer your questions at the end of the webinar in the order they were received. And now, a bit of background about today's speaker, Emmett Williams from Myzone. Emmett is a native Australian who has the rare experience of being both an operator and a vendor in the commercial fitness industry, whilst also working extensively in 3 different regions of the world. Having built and owned 7 gyms on one side of the ledger, to having grown the international fitness sales and marketing company CFM on the other side of the ledger. Emmett now lives in the USA and allocates most of his time towards being group president and partner in the wearable technology company Myzone. Emmett last year was awarded entry into Fitness Australia's prestigious Roll of Honor for his excellence in leadership, and you may have also seen him speak at the 2018 TOM Conference in Charleston. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Emmett Williams.
Thank you very much, Brian, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for allocating your valuable time today to what I've got to say. I plan this to be a 30-minute presentation, and at the end of that, I'll absolutely be able to answer questions, and I've got an email on the homepage here and also on the closing page if you wanted to email me directly. But yes, as Brian said, the topic today is how to leverage wearable technology to spike exerciser engagement. And let me say off the top, this is not a Myzone sales pitch. If you've got another wearable platform, if you're looking at another wearable platform, you will be able to get some takeaways out of this presentation that you can apply. Now, let me start with the end in mind. And I will be sharing some Myzone insights because that's, of course, my experience. But what I'm going to show you today will give you an outcome whereby you can increase your net promoter score by 11 points. MXM were good enough to do a study with over 24 health clubs that have got the Myzone system. They took a sample size of 1,000 Myzone users and compared it to the control group. The fact it was 1,000 users means that the confidence interval was quite high. And what they found was that Myzone users, and let's just interchange that for wearable technology users, had a higher net promoter score. If you're not familiar with net promoter score, that's okay. Just think of it as a loyalty metric on a scale of minus 100 to positive 100. And let me say this, an 11-point delta is significant and it cascades into economic benefits like retention and more spending and more referring and all that good stuff. So this is what you're going to get out of the presentation today. I will break it down into 3 parts. The first part will be the executive overlook, the big picture. Then we'll move on to what is arguably the most critical success factor with any wearable platform, and that is staff adoption. There's a model to follow. I'll walk you through it. And the third part will be deployment ideas to get a return on investment. It's one thing for wearables to be shiny and new and gain attraction and attention. It's another thing to deploy it so there's an ROI. So they're the 3 areas that we'll be looking at. So let's jump into the first part, which is the executive outlook. Okay, this graph is an indication of the growth of wearable technologies since 2011. The growth rate has been in hyper mode, and there was a catalyst for this. It wasn't Fitbit like you may think it was. You see, Fitbit had been around well before 2011. They'd been around, I think, since 2004, 2005. And in fact, what preceded that was the pedometer that you'd all remember from back in the day. The pedometer was developed back in the 1500s by Leonardo da Vinci, right? He developed it to give to Roman soldiers to improve their mapping so that when they'd walk northwest, 1,000 steps, they knew exactly how far it was and it would make the mapping more accurate. So it wasn't the pedometer. What it was Bluetooth and the cloud. As soon as you could track your steps and conveniently upload it to a storage point such as the cloud, it just became really easy, and that's where the growth came from. Tracking exercise and having goals and attaining goals, this is not new. The technology, however, is. Now, back in 2011, Fitbit only did $8 million worth of revenue. This year, they're on track to hit just under $2 billion worth of revenue. So if you use Fitbit as a proxy for the growth of fitness trackers, it's certainly quite impressive. And the growth rate is not slowing down. Now, even though the growth rate has been in hyper mode, what's happened with fitness trackers is something that looks like the Gartner hype cycle here. At the beginning of the hype cycle, you can see a technology trigger. That was what I just said it was, the Bluetooth connection with the phone and the cloud for easy storage. And a few of you may wonder why the cloud's so important. Just remember back to that first iPhone you had, the second, the third iPhone that you had, and all those photos that you never actually downloaded to your laptop and never stored them. Those photos have gone forever because you've lost those phones from 2004 and 5, okay? Whereas now, they automatically upload to the cloud. So that's the key function of the cloud, the ease of storing data. So anyway, that was the technology trigger. Then everyone got excited. And in the gift buying season of November and December in 2014, 2015, nearly every family in America, at least one person had a Fitbit or a Jawbone or a Nike Fuel Band, and there was a lot of excitement. We all thought that fitness trackers were going to save the world. Then there was a big thud down to the trough of disillusionment. This was where we realized that people would take the trackers off, put them in the top drawer after 3 or 4 months, and never use them again. Well, look, the space of fitness trackers has learned from that. We're now going through the slope of enlightenment, and the big question is, how do we get proper ROI? To keep on with the Fitbit example, they're they're already engaged with United Health, whereby there are monetary rewards for users jumping through certain hoops on a daily, weekly, annual basis. And the insured soul can earn up to $1,000 a year by wearing a Fitbit and doing enough exercise. Over in our area of the world, where at Myzone we're not a mass market solution like Fitbit. We're dedicated to exercises. We're learning as well, and that's where the ROI at the end of the presentation will come from. What works? How can we get outcomes for the users? How can we get outcomes for the operator? Now, the reason wearable technology works is because of this. It's because of what Colgate learned back in the 1930s. You see, they had a toothpaste that was bland, and they wanted to get their customers to brush their teeth twice a day, but they were only brushing their teeth once a day. So they went out and they educated their customers and said that brushing your teeth twice a day has lots of benefits and you should do it. It did not move the needle. Then the behavioral scientists came into the room and said, you've got it all wrong, guys. What you need to do is put some citric acid in the toothpaste, right? Give it a tingling feeling. And if you give it a tingling feeling, there'll be an instant sense of reward, an instant sense of achievement, satisfaction, just a little win. And that feels good. Dopamine is released in the brain and you feel good about that win. Now, when you get triggered to brush your teeth again, i.e., when you go to bed and you shut the curtains and it's time to do it again, because it feels good, you've got the urge to do it again. If it doesn't feel good, if there's no reward, you don't get the urge to do it again. So reward is the key function here. And this is what wearable technology is all about. Now, in the realm of tennis, yeah, it's great to win a point. It's great to win a game. It's great to move up a leaderboard. That is all reward, and that's what gets us coming back again. The bigger the reward, the bigger the urge to do it again when you're triggered. That's behavioral science in a nutshell. Now, from a strategy perspective, I like to think of an orchestra. You see, as a composer of music, which is what you guys are when you build a plan or build a strategy, you have a lot of instruments you can pull on. There's the string, there's the woodwind, there's the percussion, you name it. You can call on them and turn them on, or you can turn them off. It's up to you, the composer. And you're bringing all these instruments in to try and get the outcome that you're looking for. Wearable technology is just one of the instruments. And depending on what your macro goal is, what your set of objectives are, you may pull on it or you may not pull on it. If you want to give your customers a sense of reward and feeling good, and if you want to build routine by giving them an urge when they finish work on a Monday night and it's 5 o'clock, and that's the trigger to go to the gym and do cardio tennis, for example, then give them as much reward as you can so that the juice is worth the squeeze, as the old saying goes. Again, as you're a composer and you're a strategist here working out what products you will introduce into your orchestra, this Venn diagram explains it well. You are company A. Your competitor is company B, and then you've got your customer. You see where the orange and the green overlaps? That is where you've both got the same feature. The customer wants the feature. You've both got it, right? So it might be a tennis court, for example, and therefore it's not a competitive advantage. It's known as a point of parity, and you've both got it, and so therefore you've nullified each other. The orange area is where your competitor has features that you do not have, but your customer wants them, and therefore that's their advantage. And the green area, of course, is what you've got: features, offerings, programming, brand, that the customer wants. Your competitor does not have it. That's your competitive advantage. Now, I show you this because over on the left-hand side of company A, there's a lot of white space. And that is representing operators who bring to the table lots of products and services and programs that they learn from trade shows, and they install them. But guess what? The customers don't care about them. The customers don't want them. And therefore, they become a white elephant over in that white area. So with that said, there are lots of options out there in terms of wearable technology. I'll take you through a few of them. This amp strip here, in fact, this has been discontinued. Back in 2015, it was the hottest thing in the fitness space. It was a strip that you would put above your, or just near your heart. It had 3 sensors in it. It had an accelerometer, heart rate, and temperature. And this device would know if your heart rate went up and your temperature went down, it would tag it as you were swimming. If your heart rate went up, but you did not move, it would tag it as you were getting stressed. A really intuitive device. The problem is it was discontinued in the fitness space, and they've pursued with its go-to-market strategy in the medical space. Why? Because it was too expensive. You had to change a patch every 7 days, and it took the total cost of ownership over a 12-month period, well over $300, and the economics just weren't there. So they discontinued, even though it was a good product. A product like Move. This device will measure your G-force. So when your foot lands on the ground, it will measure with how much force. You've got to ask yourself the question, is that relevant to your market? Or is this dedicated to those people who are looking after their knees and need to land softly? And is it really more about runners who need to be reminded to land softly to protect their knees? Have a look at this, Ralph Lauren. This is their compression shirt. You may remember this from the 2016 US Open, where the ball boys wore this garment. This garment was $300. Yes, because it had the Ralph Lauren logo on it, but it was $300, and it was full of silver fibers. The problem with this is that you need to have less than 6% body fat to feel comfortable wearing it because it's so tight. Again, is that relevant to your audience, or is it not relevant to your audience? I can assure you I purchased one, and my next door neighbor, who we've got a very good relationship, but when I went and tested it and went for a run, he suggested I don't ever do that again, and that I go in and put another t-shirt over the top of it. So again, it comes down to what's relevant on the Venn diagram. This is Athos. This is essentially a wetsuit that you put on when you work out, and it will show you what muscles are firing and will give you feedback on what to do to balance your body. And if you're doing a squat, for example, how to do a squat, which is correct form. But it's a wetsuit. Essentially a wetsuit. Who on earth will be putting this on before a workout? Yes, it's cool, but is it relevant to your customer base? Coming back to this Venn diagram here, when you take on a wearable technology, make sure it's relevant for your customers, and don't get excited by the cool factor. Get excited by the ROI factor. So that leads me to the second part of the presentation, which is the staff rollout. This, as I said off the top, is crucial. This diagram here is made up of 5 elements that will give you change. If you have a look at the top row, if you can give your staff vision plus skills plus incentives plus resources plus an action plan, you will get change. However, if you do all of it and you miss out on one of them, let me just get this here. If you miss out on vision, but you give them everything else, then you will confuse the staff. Whereas if you give them vision, but forget to give them the skills, then they'll be anxious. If you give them everything, including the vision and the skills, but you don't give them an incentive, and that does not necessarily mean commission, but an incentive from their perspective, then you'll get resistance. And you've all experienced that before when the staff resist the new program. If you give them everything, but you don't give them the resources, you'll get frustration because they won't know what to do. And if you give them everything but an action plan, then there'll just be a false start. And it was a great idea that you had that came from the trade show. Okay, so from a vision perspective, this model here is classic. This is the trans-theoretical model of behavior change. It's been in the fitness industry particularly for decades. And essentially what it's suggesting is that consumers go through a number of stages. First of all, they're in pre-contemplation. They don't know that they've got a problem. They don't know that they need to be exercising, and therefore they're not part of your market. Then once you persuade them and motivate them, they start contemplating the problem at hand. My God, I'm overweight and I can no longer get into the jeans that are my favorites. I really need to lose some weight. From there, they start to prepare. They look at their alternatives. This is where you, as an operator, should educate them to help them make that decision. Then they begin to take action, and this is where the sales team get involved. And from there, your job is to try and maintain their routine. This is where wearable technology plays. It's not necessarily an attraction tool. It is absolutely about maintenance. And if you explain that to the staff, they know what role it plays. If you break exercises down into 4 quartiles, the reality is that the top quartile are made up of people who are extremely motivated because they're intrinsically motivated. They love it. And in the world of tennis, there are lots of participants who just love the game. It's intrinsic reward, and it doesn't get better than that. But not everyone is extrinsically motivated. Some at the other end of the continuum need extrinsic reward. They know they should exercise. They've signed up to doing exercise, but I tell you what, it's a chore, and you need to try and put a sugar cube in front of the horse to get it to move, if you will. And then in between, there is a blend. This is where wearable technology helps out. It provides the extrinsic reward, that sugar cube, if you will, that will help motivate the bottom rungs of this continuum. Not everyone will take to it because there are a lot that are intrinsically motivated, and that's okay. They don't need the incentive. Okay, so now we move on to skills. The best way to share skills with your staff is through video. Of course, at Myzone, we've done a whole bunch of them. If you have another system, you can do them yourself. Just film them on your smartphone, get them up onto YouTube, create a playlist, and cover off on the fact that you have staff turnover. And the best way to combat that is to have a set of videos so that when you do have staff turnover, the skills are still embedded in the staff themselves. How to talk about wearables, why we've got them, what they do, how to apply them, some talking points so they don't feel stupid. We move on to incentives. I said earlier that it doesn't have to be commission, and it doesn't. It's not about the money. It's about What's in it for me? YFM, my favorite radio station. So if it is a one-on-one trainer, it may be about saying to that trainer, hey, look, this is you keeping your client accountable, right? So you may be coaching them tennis and they may have a goal whereby they want to improve on the rankings within the club system, and they need to improve their fitness. And so you give them some homework, and that homework is cardio. It's go on some long bike rides, get a couple of jogs in. We need to improve on your fitness, because then you'll be able to sustain the game longer. Now you can keep them accountable to that. You can put a device on them, you can pair with them, you can watch them do that cardio, you can give them a thumbs up for doing that cardio, and they now know that they've got a head coach, not just coaching them throughout the 1 hour session, but keeping an eye on the rest of the week as well. If it's a group environment, and in your case, this would not necessarily be boot camp, which is what you're looking at on the screen, but it may be cardio tennis. And that may be where you say to the group, okay, guys, welcome to the 5 o'clock session of cardio tennis. We've got about an hour, but this session is worth X amount of calories or X amount of points, whatever system you're using. We're not going home until, as a group, we've achieved 2,000 points or 10,000 calories. So let's get at it, right? So that means that they're all on the same team, and it's not about dragging their feet to get to the other side of the court. It's about running hard and jogging on the spot and keeping active and keeping their heart rate up, or else they'll be letting down the team. So it's great for camaraderie. User-generated content. Sometimes the general managers and the club managers are looking for social content. The most powerful social content is user-generated content, i.e. Your customers posting on social media feeds and having a screenshot of how many calories they burn after a cardio tennis class, for example, or after a game of tennis where they crushed it on the calorie burn. That speaks to your audience who are watching your channels. So your club manager may be more interested in that. That's what's in it for me, for the club manager, different to what's in it for the coach, different to what's in it for the one-on-one trainer. Okay. Okay, very good. It may be that the club manager is looking for more attendance, because we all know that we won't give up Netflix if we're watching Netflix. Same thing with a membership. We won't give up the membership if we're using it. And we have internal studies at Myzone, at least, that show that members that connect on the app and have more than 4 connections down here in the bottom, if they have more than 4 connections on their app, they will exercise a lot more than if they have no if they have no connections on the app. Why is that? It's because we all do more when other people are watching, right? It's just natural to do that. So complement your physical offering with a digital offering. We're all familiar with people that post on Instagram and Facebook, and they go running back to it an hour or 2 later to see how many likes they got of that wonderful photo. This is no different. We've also got further studies that will show if you engage, i.e. you like other workouts or you receive likes, if you comment on other workouts or receive comments, that's even more engaging. So the lesson here with all these graphs is, if you do have a wearable platform, make sure you connect everyone, and make sure you, the coach, connects with everyone and get a social and digital conversation going. Okay, we move to resources. Again, similar to a skill set, but you need to have marketing resources behind it. Putting a wearable technology on the wall and putting some heart rate belts on a shelf will result in not much momentum. It's about putting the programming around it. This is where, we are forever running challenges and whatnot over at Myzone, and our customers are forever running challenges at a club level. You don't have to give away, thousands of dollars. You could give away dinner for 2 at a local restaurant. You could give away paid programming of some sort. And running challenges like this is very similar to like a turkey trot. It's exciting. It gives people a reason to get into shape. It's October. I know I've got to get back into shape. You know what? I'll sign up for the 5K turkey trot, and that'll make me get off the couch and get fit for it. It's doing a job, right? And that's what this challenge would be doing as well. It's doing a job to make sure that those that are extrinsically motivated have something like a sugar cube in front of them, a chance to win. Very good. Staff training resources, again, we have lots of videos and podcasts and whatnot. If you have a different system, that's fine. You can go to our channels and pick up on it, or just do your own, get them up on YouTube playlist, and make sure that your staff know exactly what you're doing and how to do it. And then an action plan is the last one, and this is a huddle. If you don't huddle the team up and say, right, this is what the goal is with this wearable platform, and this is how we're going to achieve it. The how is the set of activities that you choose. So therefore, to go back to that orchestra analogy, the how is what instruments are we going to use at what time in order to achieve what goal. Put that on one page, have it quarterly, so everyone is literally on the same page. Okay, so we move to the final part, which is member rollout, part 3. And it comes down to return on investment, because if you don't have that ROI, then you lose enthusiasm for it, right? So the way we look at a customer is a lot like this. And whether it's a gym member or a member of the tennis program, it costs money to acquire them, which is the negative red bar graph on the left. And then after that, they pay you money for a certain amount of time until they stop. Some months they'll spend more than others. Your job is to, from a financial perspective, is to try and maximize the green shaded area to get the highest return on investment. And really, that is what wearable technology should help you do. It should be an instrument to try and maximize this. In a team, so I've got 3 tips for you as we come into a close. Tip number 1 is enhanced team training. In your case, that may be cardio tennis. I alluded to it before. Set a group goal. Guys, our goal is 10,000 calories. We're not going to leave until we get it done. So you're all on the same team, support each other, keep the heart rates up, burn calories, and let's get it done. Another one is HIIT protocol. You're all familiar with how popular high-intensity interval training is. The promise of HIIT training is that your metabolism will burn for 36 hours after doing the workout. And so the only way you get that benefit is if you work out at a high rate, at a vigorous rate. Cardio tennis is great for that. And so therefore you can validate it. Guys, that's why you come to cardio tennis, because you can't mimic this yourself going for a jog. We make it fun. As Woody from Genesis says, it's the disguise in exercise, I think his saying was last month at the conference. I love that saying, and now you're validating it. You can also sit there and do heart rate recovery, where at the end of the session you say, guys, jack your heart rate up, okay, now stop and watch it recover. And the further it recovers, the stronger your heart. And so you can start giving them feedback not only on fat burning, but on the health of their heart, which is really important. Okay, so then we come to the one-on-one, which is that one-on-one personal training session or coaching session in tennis, keeping them accountable to homework, like I said, and having a digital community to communicate with them through the week. You may think you're crossing the line if you text message too much, whereas through an exercise app, you've got the permission to go back and forth as many times as you want, because it's built for purpose. And then with the broader group, the third tip is really all about those challenges. Going out there and using a challenge like a turkey trot to attract people to the device, because they're not buying a device, they're buying into a program, right? Just like with a fun run, you're not buying a chip to put on your shoe, you're buying an event to make sure that you get yourself into shape and do some exercise, right? Even though you're paying for the chip, so to speak. It's the same thing here. They're not buying a heart rate belt. They're buying an event to get them to spike their exercise engagement. As I'm aware of the time, we've just come up to 1:30. I've got a few more minutes here, and then I'll open it up to questions. At IRSA, one of my favourite speakers, and I've been going to IRSA for, it feels like 15 years now, I think it is. My favourite speaker was a few years ago, Kelly McGonigal. She's a behavioural scientist at Stanford. She's also a personal trainer and an instructor. and she left this with us as the most important lesson for those in the exercise space, and it was the fishbowl effect. The fishbowl effect is this. There was a drug and rehab group that were told to turn up on a Tuesday night and to go through a 45-minute education session for 6 weeks in a row, and the attendance was only 20%. So they put an incentive in place of $5. If you show up, we'll give you $5. Nothing happened. It did not move the 20% number. Then what they did was they had a fishbowl, and they put random prizes in there. Some of them were nothing, and others were a brand new iPad. And the chance of winning big drove the attendance all the way up into the 80s. This is, of course, the science of Las Vegas. Okay, the chance of winning big is far more motivating than the certainty of winning small. To the point that retirement pension funds are now turning around to their investors and giving them a chance of winning something every month if they put money away for their college fund or their retirement fund, because that chance of winning something is more exciting than certain return down the track. Okay, and that's why you would run challenges, because of this science here. We do all sorts of heart health challenges and March Madness challenges and all that good stuff that you can apply into your programming. Midtown Athletic Club did a study. A lot of you will be familiar with this group. They found that Myzone users, you can interchange this with Wearable, but Myzone users were working out I'll go back. They were visiting the club 33% more than non-Myzone members. We found over at the Atlantic Club in New Jersey that those members that were only visiting 4 times per month, when they did a challenge, they would visit 11 times per month. That was the sugar cube in front of the horse to get movement. So you can affect behavior. And to bring it home here, I will say that we went out on social media recently and did a brand audit, and there were 2 questions. One was this: how do you feel when you use our wearable product? And the most common word was motivation. Behind that was the word accountability. There was words like success and challenge and effort and competitive and unstoppable and perseverance. This is how they felt using the product. Then we said to them, now go to Google Images and find an image that represents that feeling. And these here were the most common photos to come through. People climbing up steps, getting to the top of the mountain and putting their fists in the air. It felt like, you know what? There's hard work. I know it's hard work. I'm concentrating on the process. And when I get to the top, it feels great. If that is part of your strategy, if that's an activity that you want to participate in because it will serve your higher goal, then maybe wearable technology is an option that you could consider. So as I finish, I said to you off the top that if you follow this, that you can expect Net Promoter Score to spike, which is the granddaddy of engagement. And this is exactly what we've found from my perspective of being president of Myzone. So guys, let me go to the final page here so you can see my email address. And if there are any questions, Brian, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Going to the feed, I don't see, oh, hang on, chats. Let's have a look. I don't see any questions on the feed. Of course, you can go on to GoToWebinar and ask a question, or you can email me direct and be more than happy to reply to that later on today when I'm on a flight. More than happy to do that as well. No, Brian, I don't think we've got any questions, so I'll throw it back to you, sir. No. Okay, then in that case, guys, if there's no questions, we will bring it to an end. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. you can get your hands on this deck. At the end of it, feel free to either email me for that. Brian will also be sending out the notes, and have a very good day. Thank you.